You're standing in a circle, firelight flickering on your face, 50,000 BC, and someone in your tribe just stopped getting invited to sit by the fire. Not because they were violent, not because they were dangerous, just because one day the tribe decided they were done. No argument, no confrontation, no dramatic speech, just complete, coordinated, total silence. That's it. That's the punishment. Now, here's what nobody tells you about that silence. It wasn't awkward, it was a death sentence. We spend a lot of time imagining ancient humans as these brutal, impulsive creatures, all fists and spears and raw aggression, but the truth is far more unsettling. Because the most dangerous thing an ancient human could do to you wasn't physical, it was social, and they knew exactly how to use it. Here's the thing about surviving 50,000 years ago that changes everything once you understand it. You didn't survive alone, you couldn't. No individual human, no matter how strong, how fast, how clever, made it through the prehistoric world without a tribe behind them. The predators were bigger, the nights were longer, the winters didn't care how tough you thought you were. Your tribe wasn't just your social life, it was your immune system, your food supply, your early warning system, your only real line of defense between you and everything that wanted to eat you. So when the tribe went quiet, when they stopped sharing food with you, stopped warning you about predators, stopped acknowledging you were even there, you didn't just feel lonely, you died. Slowly, quietly, completely alone. And this is where it gets genuinely fascinating, because anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying hunter-gatherer societies, not one or two, not a handful, over 150 of them, across every continent, every climate, every culture humans have ever built. And he found the same system every single time. In every one of those societies, the tribe didn't just prefer fairness, they protected it aggressively. If anyone started taking more than their share, more food, more say, more status than everyone else, the group mobilized, not with violence, not at first, but with something far more precise. It started with gossip, and I know what you're thinking. Gossip, really? That's the ancient justice system? But here's why that's exactly right. Think about what gossip actually does. It spreads a reputation without a single direct confrontation, without tipping off the person being talked about, and without anyone having to take individual responsibility. Researcher Robin Dunbar, an Oxford professor who spent his career studying human communication, argued that gossip wasn't just idle chatter. It was the original social media, a system for sharing information about who was trustworthy and who wasn't, running silently through the tribe like a background process. Someone takes more meat than their share, within hours, everyone knows. Not because there was a meeting, not because anyone made an announcement, just because humans talk. And that information, spread quietly, person to person, was more powerful than any formal accusation could ever be. Because it didn't put anyone at risk, it just changed how people felt. Among the Hadza of northern Tanzania, one of the oldest living hunter-gatherer tribes on Earth, anthropologists found this exact pattern playing out in real time. To the Hadza, stinginess wasn't just frowned upon, it was considered the worst human quality. Worse than aggression, worse than dishonesty. Because in a tribe where everyone's survival depended on sharing, the person who hoarded was a person who let others die. So the gossip would start. Quiet at first, then louder, then open mockery, laughter at the wrong moments, jokes with edges, then shunning, then the full coordinated silence. And for most people, that was enough. The silence alone broke them. They changed. They fell back in line, because even the threat of being erased from the group was unbearable. And if even that didn't work, if the person refused to change, kept taking, kept pushing, kept violating the unspoken rules, Boehm documented what happened next. The tribe would meet, without the offender present, in small groups, in the dark, whispering. They would make a collective decision, not with anger, not with vengeance, with the cold, shared logic of people who understood survival. That is, execution. Not as cruelty, as arithmetic. This person costs more than they contribute, and in the brutal mathematics of prehistoric life, that was enough. Now, here's the part that most history books skip over entirely. This wasn't rare. Boehm found evidence of this entire system, the gossip, the shunning, the silence, the final decision, in Africa, the Americas, Asia, Australia, and the Arctic, everywhere, which means it wasn't one tribe's cruelty, nor was it a cultural accident. It was a human universal. Everywhere our species has ever lived in small groups, we've built the same system, the same ladder of consequences, the same final answer for the person who wouldn't stop. Before courts, before prisons, before written law, before any of the formal structures we associate with justice, justice already existed, built from whispers. And here's what makes this really strange to think about. The person being cancelled in a prehistoric tribe almost certainly didn't see it coming. They weren't a villain in their own story. They were just someone who wanted a bit more. A bit more food, a bit more influence, a bit more of what everyone else had. But by the time the silence fell, by the time they noticed the looks had changed, the invitations had stopped, and the conversations went quiet when they walked over. It was already too late. The tribe had decided, not in a meeting, not with a vote, just collectively. The way a flock of birds all turned at once. No signal, no leader, just the shared instinct of a group that had already made up its mind. And this is where it gets personal, because you've felt this, even when nothing was actually at stake. Researcher Kip Williams ran a series of experiments where participants played a simple online ball tossing game with strangers. After a while, the other players, who were actually just computer programs, stopped passing the ball to one participant. That's it, a virtual game. Strangers on the internet with no real consequences. But the participants felt it. Not metaphorically, physically. Brain scans showed the exact same region that fires when you burn your hand or stub your toe lit up in exactly the same way when someone was left out of a meaningless online game. Being ignored by strangers in a game with no stakes registered in the brain as physical injury, because your brain doesn't know the difference between a pointless game and being cut off from the tribe. It was never built to make that distinction. It was built for a world where those two things were exactly the same. Think about what that means. The reason your chest tightens when someone leaves your message unread. The reason being left out of a group chat feels physically uncomfortable. The reason public humiliation hits differently than any other kind of pain. And the reason that getting cancelled, even when you know it's irrational, still lands like something physical in your chest. That's not weakness. That's not sensitivity. That is 300,000 years of your nervous system whispering the same warning it always has. The mechanism that once determined whether your ancestors lived or died is still running in the background of your brain right now. Same software, completely different world. The tribe went from 25 people around the fire to 25 million people on the platform. The stakes went from survival to trending. But the feeling in your chest when the silence falls, that feeling is identical. So, the next time you watch someone get cancelled, or feel the particular cold dread of being frozen out by people you care about, just know this. You're not overreacting. You're not being dramatic. You're feeling something real, something so ancient it has no beginning. The tribe never changed. We just gave it Wi-Fi.